Councillor Haynes' motion said was, how much would it cost us to go back to that? Not to retry it, we already know it, but simply to have a better situation for council and the public while we wait for final change. In the end, I suspect in the actual webcasting section of this, there may be some savings to be had. Technology is cheaper than what's on here. On the other ones, it's going to be a matter of what we decide is something that needs to be done at this time. You're probably going to have a cost to raise the council platform, plain and simply. If you decide not to have monitors on each councillor's desk, then you will probably be able to use the current desks and do more or less what we have done in that respect. And that would be a substantial savings in terms of the ultimate cost. But that's something that will come back in the report of staff. At this point, I'm still going to support the motion because I think it's worth going back to it if it doesn't cost us very much money. Thank you.
Councillor Workman.
Last time on this one. The public have seen council sitting here for 50 years, we've heard. I'm sure if we sit here for another 5 months, they'll forgive us for it. Rather than moving up and down and up again. Thank you.
Councillor Sanders.
Again, I agree. We could go back to the 1965 version where we were at an angle and we could cut in there and everybody could see. You can see everybody. I mean, I'm just throwing that out. I'm a little bit tongue in cheek here. I want to comment though that that didn't change for every one of us in council when we went up there. You know, I think the first 2 seats got to curve around, but I mean, 4 of us across here still look at each other. We don't get to see the audience or anything, so it's not a complete change for all the council members. I just wanted to throw that out, and so I don't see any value in going up. We've tried it, let's move on.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, could you read the motion back for us again?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion is that council request staff to return a costing for the council to consider an interim return to the previous setup.
Councillor Plant.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I apologize for adding time to the meeting, but I think the question we all goofed not to ask is, what did it cost the first time? Please, through staff, through you to staff, because that'll give us an indicative flavor of what it's going to cost again.
Yeah, maybe we can get just an idea of time and effort and cost.
So through the mayor to Councillor Plant, it was in the ballpark of about, I'm a bit fuzzy on the actual numbers, but around $400 to $500 to originally set it up, and then there was a renting fee each month of a couple $100. If we're talking about having this there again, we probably would want some sort of handrail, so there might be additional costs for that. I would have to look and see how we can maybe change the wireless aspect of these speakers, and if that could easily be changed or not. So there might be an additional cost there, but I think all said and done, we probably could look at something around the $2,000 mark for several months.
Thank you.
So with that, I'm going to call the question on this motion. All in favor? Say Councillor Haynes, Councillor Plant, Councillor Murdoch, and Councillor Dermott in favor. Opposed? Councillor Sanders, Bryce, Wergeland, Brownhoff, and myself. That motion is defeated. If there are no more motions, I think we can move to the next item on the agenda. Madam Clerk, would you please introduce that item for us?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This next item is item 5, and it's the lease agreements for municipally owned buildings. The report of the Director of Legislative Services is recommending that Council not revise the provisions of the lease agreement with the Gower House Society. Thank you.
Councillor Dermott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the recommendation. And I would like to speak to it briefly.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks, staff, for the report, and I agree with them that it would open up a fair can of worms, I think, to start to fiddle with lease agreements. But I also agree with what the last statements are in the report from Council, and it says, if Council wishes to provide additional assistance to the Society through capital or operating funds, it is recommended consideration be given to changing the relationship from a lease agreement to a management or facility use agreement. And that's something that I think with this organization we should very much look to. That would require a separate new report from staff, and that's something I intend to pursue in the new year this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion? I'll call the question on the recommendation then. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, we're now on to item 6. Madam Clerk, could you please introduce this item for us?
This item, Mr. Mayor and Council, is the annual designation of the councillors as acting mayor. And the outline is as put forward in the memorandum.
Move the recommendation.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Don't think we really need any. It's the same list as last year, so it's a bit of housekeeping, I suppose. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, let's move on to section G. Madam Clerk.
This item is the recommendation from the Director of Parks and Recreation, recommending that council endorse a motion from the Parks, Trails and Recreation Advisory Committee and approve the park naming as outlined in the report.
Move the recommendation.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on this? So I have a question for staff. I guess how are names submitted? How are they proposed? How are they? I guess we're settling upon them. I'm just sort of wondering how the public weighs in. I've seen a letter with an endorsement. I've seen another letter that didn't endorse one of the park names. I'm just wondering if you could give us some information around that process.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Generally, the naming process follows the council policy that's attached to the agenda package, and so in some cases it typically just follows adjacent street names, and then for some of the larger parks, there's I think a request or a requirement in the policy that we go out to the local organizations and provide a suggestion based on how the policy is laid out, and then seek their feedback. And so that's what took place in this situation. A couple of them, I think they were all initially put forward to the Parks, Trails and Recreation Committee with names relating to adjacent streets. And there were 2 situations where there was a suggestion for some alternatives, and those alternatives were approved by the committee.
All right, thank you for that. That was fulsome. Any other questions? Any more discussion? Councillor Sanders?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just need to clarify then what Mr. Henderson has just said. So there's, on here says the name that complies with council policy and the name suggested by the community association. So which are the names that got approved? Just so I'm clear. And I was talking specifically, of course, to Cecilia Creek Falls Park.
So the 2 that were changed were I think one was suggested as Shelburne Park. It's the new park that was associated with the development. That got changed to Glen Craig, I believe it is.
Okay.
And Linwood was changed to Cecilia Creek Falls.
Okay, that's fine. Confirm that. Thank you very much.
Any more discussion? Councillor Haynes?
Just want to clarify.
Microphone, please. Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify then, because on the document here it says Linwood Park, but we are going to go with Cecilia Creek Falls. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that was what was discussed and recommended by the committee.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? I'll call the question on the motion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Something that I just noticed, the date of this council policy is 1993, and we do go through our policies and routinely update them. Particularly under number 4, it says, change the names of existing parks are to be considered by the Parks and Recreation Committee. I think this is an old name for the new Parks, Trails and Recreation Advisory Committee, and I think I'd look for a motion from council to have this policy looked at by staff and updated. It is dated 1993.
Sure, I'll move that. Move that this policy be reviewed by staff and report back to council.
Should we go to second?
Moved by Councillor Plant, second by Councillor Bryce. Councillor Haynes?
Shouldn't it go to the Parks Committee? And then come back here?
Typically. All right, that's understood. I'll call a question on that motion. All in favor? Opposed? Unopposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, now we're on to item H1. Madam Clerk.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This next item is the report from a member of council. This is further to the notice of motion received last week from Councillor Woodland. And the report of Councillor Woodland is recommending the council send a letter to the Capital Regional District requesting establishment of a short-term task force of CRD members that identifies the regional services offered through local governments that can assist refugees in the resettlement process, and that the Chief Administrative Officer provide a report that outlines the municipal services and programs that will further assist in the resettlement of refugees in our community.
Thank you. Councillor Woodland.
Thanks very much, Mayor. I'd like to move this, if there's a seconder.
Second.
If you'd allow me just to wander for about a minute and a half or so, and it will tie together in the end. I'd just like to make a comment. For myself, I've been fortunate over the years to have taken teams to third world countries and I'm building projects. And I remember returning from Ethiopia during their famine in the mid-70s and sharing with individuals about kids dying of famine and disease. And the response I received a number of times was, it's no big deal. It's a way of life for those people over there. And I've come to realize, and I realized then as I got to know the families, that families in any country, they love their kids, they love their families, and it's a part in every culture. In the early 90s, I traveled to visit refugee camps for World Vision during the Somali crisis. At one camp, I lived quickly out in the middle of nowhere. I climbed a water tower to view the camp. And as far as I could see, there was hundreds of small tents with tarps on them. The only thing that supported the tarps were just bent over branches, they stuck into the ground. And there were literally hundreds and probably thousands, as far as you could see, families living there waiting for some country that would adopt them, that would allow them to come in. For most of us, we can't imagine what it's like to have insufficient food, lodging, watching your children die, and being caught up in the midst of a war. I guess as a country, and I realized it, and probably many of us have realized it as we've gone to different countries, and I just brought a passport. People would do anything to have a Canadian passport, to know that they are from Canada. And we are so blessed, and sometimes I don't believe we realize how blessed we are. And I believe this is the Syria refugees have again drawn our attention to the plight of so many people around the world, not just in Syria, but those people that are still waiting in Africa and other countries in those camps, those humongous camps, just waiting for a better place to live. And we have a challenge and an opportunity to reach and to make a difference. And there's a saying that I've used in different ways, that the water board, they used to say, if we all save a little together, we can save a lot. And I've changed it around over the years. If we all give a little, we can give a lot. And if we all help a little, we can help a lot. And like has been said earlier, there might not be thousands of families coming to Victoria, but there are families that are coming, that are in the process of coming to Victoria. And because of that, I have raised this recommendation, and I don't come with any suggestions, and I'm not sure tonight we should open it up. It's not for me to open up the suggestions. I believe we're asking this recommendation to go. It'll come back in a report to council. And the recommendation is, as was read by our clerk. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dermott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly support this recommendation and thank Councillor Woodland for bringing it forward. Thank you.
Is there any more discussion? Perhaps I might suggest an amendment. There was a speaker that spoke earlier about sending a letter of support to the Intercultural Association. It's currently a body of about, I think there's about 40 players at the table. I've been at the table twice myself, trying to figure out how to put together solutions for refugees coming in around housing and education and transportation and so forth. Which reminds me that the Transit Commission, we passed a motion to provide a free bus pass to refugees for their first year here. And all agencies are coming to bear on this. and it's heartwarming to see. And I know that the Capital Regional District is also going to play an important role in this. I might just throw that on the floor as an amendment.
Move the recommendation from yourself as amended.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion on that? Councillor, well, let's go with the movers. Councillor Haynes.
Thank you for that, Mayor. I did correspond actually with Winnie, and I was delighted to see a member of the board here. One of the issues we are dealing with is how to organise to be most effective. And there are several groups coming forward, including other church groups and other dioceses. So I do believe it would be helpful to help coordinate a more centralised clearinghouse of the information, and certainly a letter of support for the Intercultural Association would be a good step in that direction. And I do understand that they had a similar request into John Riley and Sharon Clark at CRD. So along with our letter to CRD, along with our own report, I think it would be useful to identify the Intercultural Association as perhaps the most appropriate go-to organisation.
Thank you. Councillor Plant, you had your hand up?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to ask for clarification to the pseudo-mover who was going to write the letter, if it was going to be staff or yourself.
I think we could rely on staff for a very brief letter of support, and I'd be happy to sign that.
Okay, thank you.
Any more discussion on the amendment? I'll call the question on the amendment. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed? That has gone forward. And now on the main motion. Any more discussion? And I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. All right. So we're at the end of the regular council meeting now, and then I'm looking for a motion to adjourn and move to committee of the whole.
So moved.
Second.
I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed? That motion carries. Just give me a moment to organize my thoughts here, and then we'll get into it in a second. Okay, if everyone's ready, I'll now call tonight's Committee of the Whole meeting to order, and I'll just run over the procedure for everybody. I'll ask the clerk to introduce the item, after which council will be given the opportunity to ask questions of staff. I will then ask any applicant to present their application, following which I will invite public input. If you'd like to address council, please come up to the microphone and give your name and address, and please limit your comments to 5 minutes. There's a speaker's light to give you a clue of how long you have to speak. It goes yellow about a minute before your time ends, and then it starts to flash red. After everyone has an opportunity to speak, I'll then ask the applicant to return to the microphone if there are any questions to be answered, and at that time, afterwards, the matter will then be turned over to council for a decision. Following committee of the whole, council will reconvene, and may ratify any items that were passed as recommendations from the committee of the whole. So with that, I'd like to ask the clerk to introduce the first item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This next item is the council procedure bylaw. The report of the Director of Legislative Services as recommending the council consider revisions to the council procedure bylaw as described in the report.
Councillors? Councillor Bryce.
Where to begin? This I found a report that was interesting, but hard to sort of get your hands around in that some of the terminology that we have grown to use through our procedures, like delegation, is not what I had envisioned as a delegation. My expectation over the years that delegation had a certain makeup to it, and I'm hard pressed to define it. I've tried to put it to words myself in preparation for this meeting, but it really wasn't just a person coming forward and speaking on an issue. I thought a delegation always had something more broadly based in it, and so that is something I've struggled with. I see that staff have reviewed this. They don't share the same concerns I have, so I guess we'll carry on with having a different view on it. And what response council is to give to delegations. Once again, professionals suggest that we don't want to tie our hands, and I can understand that. On the other hand, if we aren't careful, we run the risk of offending a couple of really good principles, such as due notice. And I think that we can go along, and as long as everything's okay, everything's okay. It's what you look to your procedures for is when things don't go okay. And we could be, you know, voting on things where we haven't advised the public. The item is even going to be on the agenda that night, making some kind of decisions. If we hold ourselves to only referring it.
Mr. Mayor, point of order, if I could. This is the committee of the whole. Shouldn't we be inviting the public to present prior to what we're doing?
I think before that point, I was giving Councillor an opportunity to ask questions, and I thought that was where that was leading.
Okay, I'll wrap this in a question then. I would ask staff to allay my concerns and to lay out for council what the definition of a delegation should be.
Mr. Mayor, I think we have gone through that in the report, and really that is up for council to define, and there has been some discussion about what council's actions are. It's staff's view, as outlined in the report, that council is able to take some action, but of course it's with all the caveats of ensuring that it's balanced, ensuring that its procedure is taken. But staff don't necessarily see that council just has to receive delegation without taking some action. That action may just be a referral. So really, it is council's ability to police itself here to make sure that the criteria and objectives that is outlined by Councillor Bryce are maintained. And that's for each council to police itself in that regard. I think having the flexibility is identified in the staff report here, from our perspective, is fine, but it really is up to council to police that.
All right, with that answer given, then I will ask if there are any members of the public that wish to come up and speak to this item. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors, and members of staff. I think I want to speak to the section 54, the open forum. I must admit with Councillor Bryce, I found this report slightly more difficult to read than the previous one, and I was able to comprehend the report quite well. However, I'm not going to labor on that part. I just want to suggest to council that I support the idea or the concept of open forum, but I have concerns with respect to the timing and the logistics described in the report. My own view is the open forum should start at 7 p.m. and it should end at 7:30 rather than 6:15 to 6:45 as recommended or as proposed. I think this allows working people enough time to get to the meeting after work and supper. And if you're serious about open forum, it should be made friendlier to the people. The second point on that same issue is delegation should not be scheduled on the same evening as the open forum is scheduled, so you're not compressing too much into it. So those would be my couple of observations for your consideration. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is John Smuck. I live at 1180 Rock Street. I'm president of the Quadra City Community Association. I'm also the chair of the Sandwich Community Association Network. I've been here at 11 p.m. twice speaking for both of those different organizations, And thank goodness you guys are looking at having an open mic at an earlier time. Thank you so much. I'm quite happy to come at 6:15 p.m., but I also take the point that my colleague, Mr. Hadji Trani, made about maybe 7 o'clock is better for working people. But regardless, if it's at the beginning of your meetings, it's much better. And I'd also like to point out the fact that it can be intimidating for some people to come here and speak to council. And the way you were set up before, elevated, I know it's a back topic, it's far easier for the average person to come and speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Marcia Henderson, 660 Goyette Road, President of Royal Oak Community Association. I'm also speaking on Section 54, much the same as Mr. Tarania said. I think the idea of open forum is wonderful. It's good to hear that it's been well attended. It starts way too late, and I'm very encouraged that there's discussion on moving the start time forward. However, in Royal Oak Community Association, we have our meetings at the same time, the same place, to make it easier for people to attend. And I hope that you'll consider that same idea, making it easier for people to attend. If the meetings normally start at 7, is it possible to have the first half hour once a month dedicated to open forum, and just moving smoothly into the rest of the meeting after that, just the same way as you finish the council meeting and then you move smoothly into committee of the whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Coughing fit here. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? Calling for a second time. Any other members of the public who wish to speak? Sounds funny. Calling for a third time. Any other members of the public that wish to speak? All right, we'll close with the public input, and as there's no applicant to call back, we will move it to over to council for a decision. Councillor Plant.
Hang in there, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move recommendation 1 and run a series of amendments for number 2 that I would like to ask the indulgence to do them one at a time, because I think they're logical rather than as a package. And they are based on pre-thinking to tonight's meeting as well as the feedback. So if I can open perhaps by stating what the 2 would be, and then ask for a second, or I would ask for procedurally how to best proceed.
I think the way the staff have put this forward, if I'm interpreting them correctly, is they put some housekeeping in 1. And they provided some information for us to debate and decide on 2. So what we could do is we could actually have the first recommendation put forward and vote on that, and then put the second recommendation forward, and we might get into amendments or what have you. That would be my suggestion.
Then, taking your advice, I will move recommendation 1 only.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed? That's carried unanimously. Back to you, Councillor Plant.
Thank you. I will make a new number 2, and I will do them. I would ask perhaps to be done ad seriatim. However, if the committee feels otherwise, then the council rather, so be it. So the first would be, and I'll just speak one at a time, or just lay them all out.
Well, I think, let me give you my preference. Would be to give us an idea of what it is, so we can start thinking about the combinations, and then when you get to the end of that list, then we can deal with it.
Thank you for your indulgence and guidance. I would ask that the first amendment to number 2 be that a provided definition of delegation be more than an individual. So that it can be an informal or formal group, but it is no longer an individual coming to speak representing themselves as a delegation. I think delegation infers plurality. I'm not even saying 3, I would say 2. It would be fine. That's just my opinion. So that would be the first one.
Go ahead.
The second one would be to have open forum at 7 p.m. with no delegations on those evenings. And for clarification within that, there has been the discussion under Section 52 that bylaw provides that council may ask questions of the delegation to clarify or correct information, but must not enter into debate on the item. For clarity's sake, I would like to add, but must not enter into debate with the delegation. Because I believe the intent is that we can enter into debate amongst ourselves, but the intent of the bylaw is that we wouldn't enter into debate with the delegation on the merits of the topic at hand.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Plant. We're off to a good start here, so back to you.
Okay, I would like to propose that the commentary on agenda topics be reduced to 4 minutes, to be the same as the CRD, and also is one attempt to help us get out of here a few minutes earlier. And then the final suggestion that I would like to make is in an attempt to clarify what has become practice, and that is in referring to section 53 about speaking more than once. Our current bylaw says that council shall not speak more than once on the same motion without the leave of council, etc., etc. We have left that in the dust. And I think, therefore, rather than have it be something that we continue to ignore, we remove references to speaking more than once. So those are the litany of suggestions that I have, and I look forward to either them all being accepted or being debated one at one, or whatever council feels. But thank you.
Okay, I can say for myself, I think some of these are going to be up for debate. I think they're mutually exclusive, and I think if you'd like, you could move them one at a time, and we'll go through them.
Okay, so let's move the first one, delegation, be codified and defined as being more than one person.
Second.
All right, discussion. Councillor Bryce.
I totally support the spirit of the motion, but I would envision, for instance, somebody could come and speak on behalf of the Red Cross and be a person who is here talking to us about the Red Cross.